So good evening. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. Last class we are on chapter 3 of book 1, and we are on the last item, which is biblical considerations and concordances regarding creation. It's words by Kardec. You know, he's the one that wrote this question 59. It's a long dissertation, so we are going to divide in two. I'll ask Philip to read the first part, and then we'll comment, and then we'll go for the second part. Okay?
Number 59. Different populations of Earth have formed contrasting ideas about creation, depending on their degree of scientific advancement. Reason, supported by science, recognizes the implausibility of some theories. The explanation given by the spirits confirms the theory that has long been recognized by the most enlightened people. Arguments against this theory are that they contradict sacred texts. However, when we examine these statements carefully, they show us that this contradiction is more superficial than genuine. It results from the interpretation that has been given to the allegorical expressions. Adam, widely regarded as the first man and sole ancestor of the human race, is not the only point that caused religious convictions around the world to change. At one time, the movement of the earth so blatantly contradicted the Bible that every type of criticism imaginable was fired against it. Despite this, the earth continued to move in its orbit, and people today couldn't possibly object to this fact without jeopardizing their own sanity and credibility. The Bible also states that the world was created in 6 days and establishes the date of creation at about 4,000 years before Christ. According to the Bible, Earth did not exist before that time and was created out of nothing at the time of creation. Yet science has undeniably proven otherwise. The history of Earth is irrefutably written in fossils, providing beyond the shadow of a doubt that the 6 days of creation are successive periods, each of which may have been millions of years. This is not a matter of opinion, but a fact that is as indisputably certain as the movement of the earth, and one that theology itself can no longer refuse to acknowledge. This admission provides yet another example of the errors we commit by attributing literal truth to figurative language. Should we conclude that the Bible is one great error? No. But we must admit that people have definitely blundered in its interpretation. Science, in studying the geological records of the earth itself, has determined that the order in which the different species of living beings appeared, and this order matches the sequence indicated in the book of Genesis. The main difference is that Earth was created according to the laws and action of the forces of nature over millions of years. It did not spring miraculously from the hand of God in a few days, and it was not formed by the whim of divine will. Does this eclipse God's power or strength? Is the result of creative energy less sublime when it does not happen instantaneously? Of course not. And anyone who does not recognize the magnificence of the divine in this evolution of eternal laws is quite foolish. Science, far from discriminating the glory of divine power, shows us that action from a more sublime perspective is consistent with our notions of God's power and the majesty, precisely because the work was carried out without disregard for the laws of nature.
Okay, I'm going to stop here, Philip. So basically what Kardec is discussing here is something that at the time of Kardec was in the beginning of the disputes between religion and science. You have to remember that with the French Revolution, the state and science broke the links with religion and started developing on itself. The French Revolution persecuted the religious people, killed a lot of priests and religious individuals. And here we are in the middle of the 19th century, where science starts to move further and further away from religion, and the religious people start to fight against this separation between religion and science. And one of the main disputes was exactly the creation of Earth, right? So in the biblical interpretation in the Old Testament, and again, this is in the Old Testament, we don't find anything about the creation of Earth in the New Testament. It says that Earth was created in 6 days and that Adam was the first individual on Earth, and so on and so forth. And what Kardec is trying to say here is that the fact that is written in the Bible cannot be interpreted literally, which is something that 170 years later is still being done by some sects of religious people, right? That refuses to accept the scientific evolution and the scientific proofs. So there are people that still decided to believe that Earth was created at the time of Adam 4,000 years ago, and that everything that science is discovering and it's all a bunch of lies, right? It's all fake news, which is very popular nowadays. So Kardec is discussing this 170 years ago, saying, we do not discard the Bible. We interpret what the Bible wants to tell us. And on the interestingly enough, the Bible says that the world was created in 6 days. And if we change 6 days for 6 eras, we get exactly where science is today. So where science is today, we have in the evolution of Earth, as since its creation, we have 6 eras. The first 5 are called, the first 3 are called eons, which are part of the Precambrian eon. That, let me tell you here we go. So, according to science, the planet was created around 4.6 billion years ago at the beginning of the Phanerozoic eon. Spanning from the beginning of the planet around 4.6 billion years ago to the beginning of the Phanerozoic eon around 540 million years ago. So this era, the Precambrian era, is divided in 3 eras. The Hadean eon, the early stages of Earth's history, characterized by intense volcanic activity, frequent impacts by celestial bodies, and the formation of Earth's crust and the oceans. Then we have the Archean eon. During this era, Earth's crust stabilized, continents began to form, and the first signs of life appeared, including simple prokaryotic organisms. Then you have the Proterozoic eon. This era saw the development of more complex life forms, including eukaryotic organisms, as well as significant geological events such as the formation of supercontinents and the increase in atmospheric oxygen levels. And then you move into the Phanerozoic Eon, which began around 541 million years ago and continues to the present day. And it is also divided in three major eras. The first one is the Paleozoic era, from 541 million to 252 million years ago. And it's the emergence of complex multicellular life forms, including the first land plants, insects, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and early forms of marine life as trilobites. It also included major events such as the Cambrian explosion, the colonization of land by plants and animals, and the formation of the supercontinent Pangaea. Then we move into the Mesozoic era, which spans from 252 million years ago to 66 million years ago, and is often referred as the age of dinosaurs. We saw the dominance of dinosaurs, the emergence of mammals, birds, and flowering plants, and significant geological events such as the breakup of Pangaea, the formation of new continents, and the development of modern oceans. And then we have the Cenozoic era, which began around 66 million years ago and continues to the present day, and is characterized by the diversification and dominance of mammals, including the evolution of humans. Major geological events during this era include the uplift of mountain ranges, the opening of ocean basins, and changes in global climate and sea levels. So, how this ended up in the Bible as being the earth was created in 6 days? You can talk about mediumship, right? Whoever wrote was inspired by a spirit that had the knowledge and said something that may not meant days, but either the person interpreting wrote days or the original word was not days. Again, remember, this is the Old Testament, this is the time of Moses. So it was around 1600 years before the Common Era before Christ. So, according to the Bible, Earth did not exist before that time and was created out of nothing. And then Kardec goes on saying, do we question God because the Earth was not created suddenly, but was created during millions and millions of years? Actually, it's the contrary. It shows the wisdom of the creation and the creator. Nothing happens suddenly. Everything develops. It makes sense. So that's what Kardec is trying to explain here in this first part that we went through here. Okay? Any comments, questions? No? Danny, yes.
It's a little bit off, but it's about comparing science and spiritism as well. My question, now that it became law, if I'm not wrong, in Alabama, right, that frozen embryos are considered like a child.
No, the Supreme Court in Alabama decided that, but the Congress in Alabama yesterday protected the IVF.
Oh,
It's the Supreme Court, so it has.
Yeah, but protected the IVF, but not the embryo. Still, the embryo is considered a child, no?
According to what I read, they did away with that, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, let's go to the question.
Okay. The question is, according to Spiritism, is that the frozen embryo has already a spirit attached to it, or only when it's inserted in the mother?
That is a question that doesn't, it have different views in Spiritism. More old-timers Spiritists think that it has spirit attached. More modern scholars of Spiritism think that there is not. My understanding here, by what I heard, and again, it's my understanding of what I heard from different people. It's not the Spiritist version of it. It's my understanding is that when the IVF is going to succeed and be used, eventually, then the spirit will be connected to it, which is not attached, linked in a loose way to it. For the embryos that are not going to succeed, that are not going to be fertilized or are not going to succeed, there will be no spirits associated. But I also heard, and again, one Spiritist speaker saying that sometimes some of these embryos are used as a parking spot for spirits in need of forgetfulness and protection. So it's never going to become a human being, but spirits are attached to it because they need to, for different reasons, they need to be attached to it to protect them. But again, going back to what Spiritism says that the moment of conception is when the spirit attaches to the new being formed. That happens during the very beginning of pregnancy, right? When it combines the spermatozoid and the eggs. So if it is done in a dish, Petri dish, theoretically, you can say that there is a spirit attached. But again, Spiritism, in my opinion, goes beyond it. So to say that it's very difficult to defend the Supreme Court, Alabama Supreme Court decision, even according to Spiritism, because it creates so much more disturbance than help to couples in need of searching for artificial ways of procreating because they cannot procreate in a natural way. So my understanding is that even if there are spirits attached to it, the spiritual world knows with a good amount of certainty which ones will be successful and not, which ones will be discarded, and the ones that will be discarded will have no spirits attached to it. I don't know if you think different, Elmo. No.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then.
So while the embryo is in the freezer, it could, the attachment is already happening, or because that's the thing, right? Like
going to be successful, yes. But if it's not, if it's going to be discarded, if it's going to be, because there are some pregnancies that there is no spirit attached to it, right? The fetus develop. It's very rare, but it happens. That it's never going to be born. It will be a miscarriage eventually, right? But there's no spirit attached. There is I think the Spirit's book, or that says, I don't know, one of Emmanuel books. I don't know. So it is
just plain biological fecundation, development of an embryo that very shortly you will die. You won't survive.
Yeah. So there's
purely biological, nothing spiritual.
So again, there is no spirit attached there. There can be no spirit attached to these embryos created in laboratory, right? So to say that all of them are future human beings, which is what they are trying to say in the Supreme Court in Alabama, according to Spiritism, is not correct. Okay. But again, this is a very difficult subject, and still there is people studying and trying to understand better how everything works in terms of spiritism. Okay, Philip.
Modern science, in agreement with Moses, states that humanity appeared last in the creation of living beings. However, Moses places the Great Flood as having occurred 1654 years after the creation of the world, while geology shows that the great natural disasters occurred before the appearance of human beings. To date, the earliest strata contain no traces of humanity's presence, nor that of the animals coexisting with it. Nothing conclusively establishes that this is impossible, since many discoveries have already raised questions about it. It is possible that at any moment, the material certainty of the anteriority of the human race may come to light, showing us, in this case, as well as others, the biblical text portrays an allegory. The question to be examined here is whether the great flood is the same suffered by Noah, or if the amount of time required for the formation of sedimentary layers and rock formations containing fossils does not allow this conclusion. If eventually traces of the existence of human beings before the great flood are discovered, it is evident then that either Adam was not the first man, or that his creation dates back closer to the dawn of time. There is no arguing against fact if supporting evidence is found. This fact would have to be acknowledged in the same manner that the movement of the earth and the 6 periods of creation were also acknowledged.
All right. Yeah.
The existence of humans before the Great Flood is still hypothetical. However, the same argument cannot be made against the following considerations. In stating that human beings first appeared on the earth 4,000 years before Christ, and if the entire human race, with the exception of a single family, was wiped out 1,650 years later, that means that the populating of the earth dates back only to Noah's time, which is only 2,350 years before Christ. However, when the Israelites relocated to Egypt around 1800 BC, they found the country to be fully, densely populated, advanced civilizations. History also shows that at the same time, India and various other countries were also populated and flourishing, not to mention other nations that claim to date back further in time. We must therefore presume that from 2400 BC to 1800 BC, that is 600 years, the descendants of a single individual were able to populate every known country, and even those that were unknown, which we have no reason to believe were devoid of inhabitants. We must further presume that humankind was able to evolve from being unaware to the highest degree of intellectual development in this brief stint of time, which completely contradicts anthropological theory. The diversity of the human race supports this opinion. While differences in climate and lifestyle clearly change the physical characteristics of humans, we know the extent to which these adaptations may occur as a result of these influences. Physiological examination conclusively proves that there are fundamental differences between the races that are too great to have been caused by climate differences alone. The crossing of races diminishes extreme characteristics by creating new varieties rather than reproducing the extremes. This process presupposes the existence of separate races. But how can this be explained if all humanity can be traced back to a single ancestor and a short period of creation? How can we deduce, for example, that Noah's descendants in such a short time had transformed into Ethiopians? Such a metamorphosis would be as implausible as a wolf turning into a sheep, a beetle into an elephant, or a bird into a fish. No preconceived opinion or belief system can resist the evidence of facts. If we believe that humans existed before the most widely accepted time of creation, that there is a diversity of origins, that Adam lived 6,000 years ago, populating a country that until then had been uninhabited, that Noah's flood was a local catastrophe mistaken to be the great geological disaster, and if we make the proper allowances for the allegorical expressions that are characteristic of the Eastern style and common to the sacred texts of all religions, every difficulty disappears. This is why it is important to be careful in literally interpreting figurative statements of belief systems, which, like so many others, could someday enjoy a retraction from those who currently oppose them. Religion, rather than fearing the discoveries of science, should allow itself to be bolstered by it. This union is the only way that religion can arm itself against skeptics.
It's very interesting, right? Kardec, focusing on these last two sentences, right? Religion, rather than fearing the discoveries of science, should allow itself to be bolstered by it. This union is the only way that religion can arm itself against skeptics. And that's what religions still not do today, right? They still have some dogmas that contradict science and refuses to accept the evolution and the science discoveries. Kardec here in this part, talking about the evolution of humankind, uses, again, logic and extreme reasonable logic, right? Explaining, and again, we have to understand that at that time of Kardec, when he was writing this, we had no knowledge of human beings existing before the 6,000 years ago of the time of Noah, according to the Bible, or the time of Adam 4,000 years ago. We haven't found, at that time, we didn't find any proofs yet. I'm not sure if we have even found dinosaurs at that time. I think it started later, or it was the middle of 19th century, right? But just to bring it to what science knows today about our evolution as human beings, right? What science says today is humans, along with other great apes, dates back millions of years. And fossil and genetic evidence suggests that humans and chimpanzees diverged from a common ancestors around 6 to 7 million years ago. And then there is the hominin evolution, which is the evolutionary lineage leading to modern humans, known as hominins, that includes several extinct species that lived over the past several million years ago. The Homo habilis, the Homo erectus, the Homo neanderthalis, which are the Neanderthals, and others. Then you have the emergence of the Homo sapiens, or anatomically the modern humans, are believed to have originated in Africa around 200 to 300,000 years ago. There is fossil found in places in Morocco and Ethiopia that supports this theory that Homo sapiens evolved in Africa before spreading to other parts of the world. And then genetic studies indicated that Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa in multiple waves, eventually colonizing other regions in the world. These migrations are believed to have occurred around 60 to 70,000 years ago, early human populations spread across Europe and Asia, reaching eventually the Americas. But there is also interbreeding with other hominins. That genetic evidence suggests that early Homo sapiens interbred with other hominin species such as Neanderthals and Denisovans during the migrations out of Africa. I read a very interesting article this week about the science is very interested in finding more information about the Denisovans because the latest DNA studies shows that in many parts of the world, you find traces of inheritance of the Denisovans, which indicate interbreeding that we knew the human Homo sapiens had with Neanderthals, but there is very little information about Denisovans. They found one tooth, they found one small piece of bone in a different place, and they are studying based on DNA on that, but more and more they are reaching the conclusion that actually the Denisovans were more nomads than the Neanderthals, that they went further than Neanderthals and mixed with Homo sapiens around other places like North Asia and North Russia also. They found in caves in Siberia signs of Denisovans, but they have very little information and they are desperately searching for more information because there is enough information about the Neanderthals. So these are different races that became extinct that ended up mixing with the modern humans that we have now, the Homo sapiens sapiens, that's how it's called, right? Which is the only survivor. And one thing that they are very curious is why the Denisovans disappeared, because they understand why the Neanderthals disappeared. They had some limitations of their ability to survive the environment and everything else. But what they are finding about the Denisovans is that, on the contrary, they have the ability to survive in other places. So they are curious to find more information why they became extinct. And eventually, we will find. So in modern population outside of Africa, they find non-African ancestry carrying small amounts of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. And then alongside the biological evolution, humans have undergone significant cultural and behavioral changes over time. That is the development of complex social structures to use language, art, and behavior, which have contributed to the success of our species and the failure of other species to survive. But more of that we still need. So again, in terms of studying from the spiritual side with information we have from Emmanuel in the book On the Way to the Light, we know that there are spirits that came from other worlds, especially the worlds from the constellation of Capella around 10,000 years ago, that were distributed in different places of the world, including Egypt, which we can see by the pyramids and all the intellectual development that Egypt had at that time. Until today, we haven't found a reasonable explanation on how the pyramids were built. There are several theories, some better than others. Some thinks that ETs came and built the pyramids, but we don't have a concrete solution to that problem. We're still investigating. But according to spiritism, spirits with a better notion of technology brought from more evolved worlds will use that and eventually went back to their evolved enough and went back to the original places and didn't leave the manual of instructions for us on how to build the pyramids and other things like that. So we're still working on finding it. The Noah Ark, it's another thing that science is looking for, right? They have found some remains that some people believe there are part of the Noah's Ark. Some people do not accept it. They are still studying. But the region it was found, it was proved that there was a cataclysm at that time. There was a big flooding that caused what is described in the Bible as what happened to Noah. But it's interesting that you also find the same information in other historical texts, not Christian, not for the Christian or Judaic. You find in the Indian writings and in Chinese writings from old times, you find information of big floods. So it's something that happened all over the world, and it was reported. But again, we're not going to discuss the Kardec's logical reasoning here, because we can all read and see how Kardec, with his logical mind, was building ideas and constructing logical explanations by what the Bible has written, and tells us that if we want to stick to the Bible, we have to move away from science, and it's never a great idea. But unfortunately, there are still people today that are moving away from science even after embracing science. Okay? Kardec talks about the different races and how it doesn't make sense that from Noah's descendants in such a short time we will have whole races, but all of this science has proved to be not correct what the Bible said. So we have to interpret the Bible as allegories and as creations, right, of the Bible, and not take it literally. Okay? Any questions here, comments? We finished this chapter, okay? So we're going to start now chapter 4, Vital Principle, which is an interesting chapter also, right? Some complex theories here, but let's go, Philip.
Vital principle: organic and inorganic beings, life and death, intelligence and instinct, organic and inorganic beings. Organic beings are those that have an intrinsic source that produces life. They are born, grow, reproduce, and die. Their organs are specifically adapted to carrying out the different activities of life in order to satisfy their needs and maintain their existence. Humans, animals, and plants are all organic beings. Inorganic beings possess neither vitality nor the power of spontaneous movement, and are merely the aggregation of matter such as minerals, water, air, and so on. Number 60. Does the same force unite the elements of matter in organic and inorganic bodies? Yes. The same law of attraction exists for all.
Okay, so let's go back to the theory of what we studied last chapter, right? That we have God, the creator, we have the spiritual principle that regenerates the spirit, and we have everything that it's not God or the spiritual principle, which derives from the universal fluid or the cosmic fluid, which produces matter. Matter can be divided again, producing organic and inorganic beings. And the simple explanation is we have animals, plants, everything that reproduces, born, grow, reproduces, and dies are organic beings. Inorganic beings are things that have no life. A rock it's not born, doesn't grow, doesn't reproduce, and doesn't die. Can be destroyed, can be completely pulverized, but it's by action of external actions, not by its own action. Organic beings reproduce either by themselves or by combining with others or by using other means of reproduction, right? So the question 60 asks about the same force, if the same force unites the elements of matter in organic and inorganic bodies, and yes, the law of attraction exists for all. Actually, in the mineral phase, we are developing this connection between the atoms. The spiritual principle, when we is going through the mineral phase, which is the first phase, develops the concepts of the law of attraction, right? Again, we were never a rock, but we went in our development to become an individual spirit. We went through the different kingdoms, the mineral, the animal, and the plant, and the animal, vegetable and animal. Julio Padovan had a very interesting class dividing, completely separating the mineral of the inorganic beings, and then on the organic beings separating in many divisions from the early bacteria and monocellular to the more complex beings, which are us, which is how science is studying it today. But for our purpose here, it's important just to understand the difference between organic and inorganic beings, because we are going to study the vital principle, which is what animates the organic beings and is not present in the inorganic beings. Okay? Yes, Danny.
So you just said we were never a rock,
Yes.
but we have been into the mineral stage before. No.
Yes. The spiritual principle that one day will become an individual spirit goes through all the phases, including the mineral.
But not being a rock.
But it's not a rock. Again, it's associated with the mineral. It's the best we can explain is that is associated, but it was never a rock or a mountain or anything like that. But it goes through the experience that the rocks and the mountains and the inorganic beings have to learn the law of aggregation that will help us eventually form our physical bodies in the organic stage, right? So it's in the vegetable, instinct is in the animal phase. The vegetable phase is forgot. It's we learn.
The higher vegetables has very elemental instinct already.
Yeah, but what we learn in the vegetable phase is not it's not instinct. It's autonomic.
Automatism.
Yeah, automatism. Yes, autonomic systems are we learn in the vegetable phase, and then when we become go through the animal phase is the instinctive, and the more evolved animals, the first signs of rudimentary intelligence. And again, all the kingdoms are connected to each other, right? So you have plants that more advanced plants that eat animals, right? So they are becoming animals already, insects, right? And actually you have some minerals that have some vegetable characteristics, and I don't remember exactly which ones they are, but the other day I was reading about them. These minerals that already have some
Crystals that grow, actually grow,
crystals that grow, yeah.
actually grow.
Yeah. So again, everything everything is in transition, right? And the spiritual principle goes through it. And again, spiritual principle is associated with it. We were never a tree, we were never a rock, we were never a cockroach.
So inorganic beings never become organic, or it's always it's
A tree
treated as
never
organic and it stays organic.
A tree never becomes an animal. The spiritual principle that goes through the phase then evolves to the animal phase. But you have to separate what is matter here, physical things, tree, a dog, a rock, and the spiritual principle that animates it and goes through those phases, learning things over those phases. So these are separate things. Same way that our physical body has a common ancestor, which we just read about it, right? But we were never monkeys or chimpanzees here, because we spirits, we that are here, came to Earth when human beings were already in place here. So our ancestors for our physical body comes from the same common ancestors as the chimpanzees and the gorillas and everything for our physical body, but not for our spirit. Our spirit came to here, to this planet, when Homo sapiens sapiens was already walking on Earth. Okay? It's complicated. You have to wrap your head around it. It's not very easy, but that's the idea behind it. We are going to go a little bit further and talk a little bit about more. All right? 61, Philip.
Is there any difference between the matter of organic and inorganic bodies? It is the same. The only difference is that in organic bodies, it is animalized.
Again, going back to what we studied, everything that is not spiritual principle derives from the universal fluid. So the matter that belongs to the organic or inorganic bodies all originated from the universal fluid. Our perispirit, the same. Our thoughts, matter also, the same. Everything originates from the universal fluid. So the only difference between organic bodies and inorganic bodies is that organic bodies is, like the spirits call here, animalized, meaning it has life in it. And then he brings the concept that we're going to study here in the next question.
Number 62.
Yes.
What is the cause of the animalization of matter? The union of matter with the vital principle.
So now we're bringing something else here. What is the vital principle? It also comes from the universal fluid. Okay? Don't get too confused by that. But if it's not a spirit or a spiritual principle, it comes from the universal fluid. But again, the universal fluid divides in thousands or millions of different things. One of the things that the universal fluid produces is the vital principle, which is the force that, combined with matter, animates plants, animals, and humans. Everything that is alive has vital principle. Everything that is no longer alive in the physical aspect, plants, animals, and humans, no longer has vital principle. Again, it extinguishes and it disappears as the physical body dies and decomposes, or the physical plant or animal. Okay, so what is the vital principle? Is the element that animates matter to give it life. Okay. Any questions here? It's clear the concept? Okay, next.
63. Is the vital principle present in a specific agent, or is it a property of organized matter? Simply put, is it an effect or a cause? It is both. Life is an effect produced by an agent acting on matter. Without matter, this agent is not life, just as matter cannot be alive without this agent. It gives life to every being that absorbs it.
Okay, it's a little bit complex here, right? So the vital principle is a property of an organized matter, or is a specific agent? Is it the effect or cause? And the answer from the spirits is both. Life is an effect produced by the vital fluid associating itself with matter. So without matter, vital fluid itself, it's not life. It's just a fluid, a principle, not a principle. Just as matter cannot be alive without this agent. So a rock doesn't have vital principle. That's why it's only matter. A plant has vital principle, an animal has vital principle, and of course we human beings. It gives life to every being that absorbs it. Okay? So vital principle is what animates matter. It is both an effect and a cause. It doesn't, by itself, it doesn't produce life. It has to be associated with matter to produce life. Without it, matter doesn't have life. It's inorganic. Okay.
64.
Let's read 64 and then we stop.
Spirit and matter are two essential elements of the universe. Is the vital principle a third? There is no question that it is necessary for the makeup of the universe, but its source is a special variation of universal matter. For you, it is an element like oxygen or hydrogen, which are not primordial elements because everything derives from the same foundation. This statement seems to imply that vitality does not lie in a distinct primordial agent, but is a special property of the universal matter resulting from certain variations. That is the correct conclusion of what we have stated.
So, again, we go back to spirit and matter are two essential elements of the universe. Spirit, spiritual principle, universal fluid, or in its variation, spirit and matter. And Kardec asks if the vital principle is a third, and then the spirits say no. It is just a special variation of the universal fluid or universal matter. So they compare with oxygen and hydrogen, which are elements that are not primordial elements because everything derives from the same foundation, which is the universal fluid. And then Kardec asks, interesting, because Kardec has a long question and the spirits just say this is correct conclusion. Implies that vitality does not lie in a distinct primordial agent, but is a special property of the universal matter. It derives from the universal matter resulting from certain variations. That's what we discuss, and the spirits say that is correct. That's what we have stated. So that is the conclusion, okay? Questions, comments here? there are still some more questions on this item. We are going to leave for next week now. Okay, we'll continue study vital principle, and then we go to life and death, which talks a little bit about how, you know, all organic beings start and finish their journey. Okay. So some announcements for this weekend. On Saturday, we have a very interesting lecture by Vicente Pessoa, who is the doctor from Goiânia. He's going to talk about the plurality of inhabited worlds, Camille Flammarion's philosophical view. He's a scholar on Camille Flammarion. He studies Flammarion very deeply. He's a doctor. He gave some lectures already, but he's going to talk about the plurality of inhabited worlds on the philosophical view of Camille Flammarion. I highly recommend. His lectures are always very interesting. So tomorrow we have the psychology and spirituality, a bridge to a better life. What we have tomorrow is collaboration and or competition. The gods must be crazy. That's episode 56 with Marcia and Dr. Anaí Fonseca. Okay. This Sunday we have the Mediumship Forum in New Jersey. That if anyone wants to join, you still can enroll. It's in the Spiritist Center Divine Light. You can find more information on the Tri-State Spiritist Federation website, okay? The United States Spiritist Federation just released today the Spiritist Review of 1864. So now we are from 58 to 64. They are all in English. There are a few left, 65, 66, 67, 68, but it's available already on to buy on Amazon. Okay. This Sunday, we are going to be studying the Gospel according to Spiritism. Remember, time changes on Saturday, so don't arrive at noon on Sunday. Nowadays, people rarely miss the change of time. It used to be more of a problem, but just to make sure that you remember, time changes on Saturday, so Sunday, 11 a.m. new time. Book club this Wednesday, chapter 6 of book 2. The book Ill-Fated Diamonds by Divaldo Franco and the spirit Victor Hugo. Okay? Carol, can you do our final prayer, please?
Yes, certainly, John. Thank you, John. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, everyone, for being here and participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks again that we are together for our studies of the Spirit's book. We are studying Book 1, Chapter 3 and 4, pertaining to biblical considerations regarding creations and the vital principle. The planet Earth was created approximately 4.6 billion years ago, according to the laws of nature, and not merely in 6 days, according to the book of Genesis in the Old Testament of the Bible. Everything develops slowly and not created instantaneously by God. Modern science has labeled the successive periods of geological ages for us. Science states that humans appeared last in the creation of living beings, first appearing in Africa, followed by various migrations and cultural changes which spread out throughout the world. Humans have gone through the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms as part of the evolutionary development. Everything that is alive has vital principle, which animates matter. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding us and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, the counselors, the mediums, the workers, the healers, and all who are participating. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, they may persevere, expand, and be protected by day and by night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we are now returning to family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we remind ourselves to go forth as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, of charity, which is love in action. So be it.